Are we ready to do this? Are we ready to do this again? Hey Missouri, my name is December and I'm with the New Lab. Welcome to our 3-part series where we're going to cover the 27 amendments of the U.S. Constitution. Today we're going to cover the first 10 amendments. This is also known as the Bill of Rights, the OGs of amendments. But I do have a new shirt on. This is my new shirt. Now, real quick, before we get into the amendments, we need to answer one really important question. What is the U.S. Constitution? The U.S. Constitution is essentially the design of our entire government. You know, the rules. When are the elections? How do you win an election? It tells us the branches of our government. It tells us about the levels of our government. It also tells us about the form of our government, and it also tells us about the separation of powers. It's almost like we've been covering it this whole time. These rules are called articles. You've heard the term articles of impeachment. The rules are listed as articles. I didn't design this. In fact, the first U.S. Constitution, there was more than one, was called the Articles of Confederation. If you would like to learn more about confederations, watch Government 101, Federation versus Confederation. I'm on it today. Okay, so you know what the U.S. Constitution is, but what is an amendment? Good question. An amendment is an afterthought, but like in legal form. I mean, I'm just making up terms to help you get this, so, you know, don't look it up in the dictionary. What is this person doing outside? It's like they're just out there revving their engine. Okay, so, sure, they established the government, but they didn't really establish the role of the people in this new government. And what they realized is that if we want people to sign on to this, I mean, we're talking about going to war. They know what they're in for. If you want people to back up what you're trying to do, you have to give them something. It couldn't be like rule under the king. They decided to give them rights. The Bill of Rights, to be exact. Of course there's a new WASP. The Bill of Rights are 10 amendments, or afterthoughts, of the U.S. Constitution. Let's start with Amendment 1. Guarantees freedom of religion, but not freedom from religion. Freedom of speech, but the Supreme Court ruled there are limits. Freedom of the press, freedom of assembly. These translate into the right to criticize the government and the right to protest. Unless it's about Israel. Last is the right to petition the government. This means that you are allowed to ask your government to change, that your government's not above reproach. Normally it's not above oh God. I couldn't even say that with a straight face. Look at this list. These are all things that you couldn't do under. You see, back then, if you were going to petition the king, you better come with pitchforks and be ready to kill somebody. That's all I'm saying. Let's look at the Second Amendment. The part that the gun people always want to ignore is in the very beginning. A well-regulated militia. What does this mean, is the question. Remember the time period that we're in, right? This is the 1700s. So what they're shooting for... That's not what I meant to say. This is a time period where you just have random pockets of people living in makeshift hovels, okay? In the woods. They're getting attacked by natives. You all saw The Revenant. I've been picking the bear since 1986. The Spanish? Apocalypto? No, that's not correct. The French? The Last of the Mohicans? I've never seen that movie. They're getting attacked by Mexicans. You all remember the Alamo, and ultimately Britain. And whoever else at the time. The Vikings showed up at one point. You got people trying to come down from Canada. What's that all about? And then later, you gotta fight the Confederacy. Basically, the right for the people to go to war on the fly. They needed to be armed to fight invaders, not armed to do school shootings. If you go back and you look at like the Federalist Papers and early documents where they're trying to figure out how this was all going to work, they never intended for the U.S. Constitution to be the final document for 250 years. No, they actually intended for it to be updated every 40 years. They expected future generations to want to write rules relevant to their time period. Man, we're only up to Amendment 3. Amendment 3 is tied to Amendment 2. Under a king, soldiers had the right to take quarter to live in your home, rent-free. And you have the obligation to feed them, give them a bath, and take care of their wounds and injuries. This is you doing your duty to the crown. You don't have a say. The concept, of course, was that these soldiers were traveling, and so they needed places where they could stay and be safe and recover. But, as you can imagine, many of the soldiers took advantage of this privilege. And you couldn't really complain about it because they were the ones with the guns. So the Third Amendment prohibits soldiers from taking quarter in your home. The Fourth Amendment is one that is still relevant today. It requires that the government have a warrant to search your property, and it protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. So basically, it's your right to privacy amendment. What does it mean to plead the Fifth? It means that you have the right to not incriminate yourself. If you are asked a question that you believe the answer will get you arrested, you have the right to not answer. It doesn't mean lie, it just means that you don't have to answer. Under a king, they would be like, you have to answer or we're going to torture you. We'll come back to torture in a second. The Fifth Amendment is your right to remain silent in order to not incriminate yourself. It promises due process of the law, meaning that the government has to take a set amount of steps in order to incriminate you. And this last one, which is kind of random, but it establishes that the government has the right to eminent domain. It means the government can seize private property. The Sixth Amendment is the right to a speedy trial. It is the right to a public trial. It is the right to a lawyer and a right to confront your accusers. The Seventh Amendment is the right to a jury trial, if you want one. The Eighth Amendment prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, meaning that you are not allowed to be abused or tortured while in custody or while imprisoned. Hey. The Ninth Amendment? The Ninth Amendment is weird. Basically, it says that just because we're listing these rights here in the Constitution doesn't mean a person doesn't have rights listed elsewhere. Your rights do not need to expressly come from the Bill of Rights to be valid. For example, like gay marriage, immigration rights, labor rights, the right to free and fair elections. All the rights. The Ninth Amendment reserves the rights to rights. I'm not joking. Some of you are probably familiar with the 10th Amendment, or at least the language of it. The 10th Amendment reserves any power not expressly designated to the federal level be given to the states and to the people. Join us for Volume 2, where we'll cover Amendments 11 through 21. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, December, and welcome to The New Left. You can keep watching at thenewleftparty.com.